and welcome to our second edition of Poem of the Week. I am your host, Emily Stockingson, and evidently I am destined on this show, as in life, to be alone. My co-host, Walt Whitman, has turned up missing, and I haven't the foggiest clue of where we would have gotten off to. He's probably frolicking through leaves and grass or some other such nonsense. No excuse for not showing up, or even worse, showing up late. Oh, now, Emily, that seems an extreme stance to take. Huh. About time you decide to arrive. I've already started. You better explain to me and all these nice people where you were exactly. Oh, who's to say, really? My soul is intricately connected with the souls of all other living beings. I was here with you. I was on a mountain, meditating with Tibetan monks. I was at the top of the highest mountain. I was on the bottom of the ocean's depths. My soul goes where the cosmos sends it. Oh yeah? Did the cosmos provide you with that Coke as well? Well, not exactly. I picked that up on my way here. And let me tell you, I do not regret it one bit. I'm sure you don't. Although I think that I was actually late because I'm interconnected with everything and everyone excuses for your tardiness are ridiculous. It does lead us quite conveniently into our poem for this week, which is all about connectedness. It's one of yours this week. I saw in Louisiana a live oak growing by Walt Whitman. Ah, yes, of course. A lovely poem if ever one was written. But I do need to clarify, because we are living in a sue-happy society. For this program, I am Walt Whitman. Fair enough, Walter. Now, back to the poem. Tell us a little bit about the title. Did you ever actually live in Louisiana? I thought you were from New York. True, I am originally from New York and spent most of my life living physically there. But I did live for 3 months in New Orleans, Louisiana, while I was starting up a newspaper there. I loved being there and was fascinated with the culture, people, and environment. I could be found just as easily in the jazz clubs as down by the bayous or on a riverboat. Unfortunately, though, my co-workers were not nearly as impressive to me as the landscape, so after about 3 months, I left and returned home to New York. Ah, that makes sense. I can relate with fleeing the state because of co-workers. I stayed in my home room most of my life to avoid that very problem. Now, tell us, what exactly is a live oak? What's so special about it? Well, a live oak, is like many oak trees. The major difference, though, is that live oaks are evergreen. They keep their leaves green and beautiful all the year round, even in the winter when other oaks have dropped all their leaves. In fact, look here, I brought a picture of what a live oak looks like to help you picture it in your mind. Seems to be a lovely tree. Now, why don't you just get to reciting the poem for us? We're behind schedule. Oh, yes, of course. Here it is. I saw in Louisiana a live oak growing by Walt Whitman. I saw in Louisiana a live oak growing. All alone stood it, and the moss hung down from the branches. Without any companion it grew there, uttering joyous leaves of dark green, and its look, rude, unbending, lusty, made me think of myself. But I wondered how it could utter such joyous leaves, standing there alone there without its friend near, for I knew I could not. And I broke off a twig with a certain number of leaves upon it, and I twined around it a little moss, and I brought it away, and I have placed it in sight in my room. It is not needed to remind me of my own dear friends, for I believe lately I think of little else other than them. Yet it remains to me a curious token. It makes me think of manly love, for all that, and though the live oak glistens there in the solitary in a wide flat space, uttering joyous leaves all its life, without a friend or lover near, I know very well I could not. Excellent work, Walter. I didn't even need to help you with any of the big words. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you wrote? Oh, Emily, I'm not even going to bother being bugged by your condescending tone, because I know, even though you detest all people, you detest me less than most. Of course, I'd be happy to walk through my thoughts. In the first 3 lines, you see me come upon this live oak standing strong and beautiful. The most striking thing to me about this particular tree is that, while it is beautiful and fresh, covered in green leaves, it, unlike most trees in the area, is all alone. Then, in the next line, you start to compare this tree to yourself. You point out that in some ways you're quite similar. You could be seen as rude, unbending, and lusty, even like this tree was. That, however, is where the similarities stop. You then point out, both in confusion and wonderment, that this tree seems to be absolutely flourishing without anything or anyone near it. Well, certainly, this was exceptionally odd to me because I'm a social creature. There's not a chance in the world that I could see myself flourishing in those same circumstances. I'd only been in Louisiana a short while, away from those I loved, and already I felt my metaphorical leaves beginning to wither and fall. In fact, I was so befuddled and impressed by this that I ended up breaking off a twig, wrapping it in moss, and taking it home to hang in my room where it is hanging still. Now, Walter, why on earth would you do that? Why bother taking something so different from you? Well, I certainly didn't take it to help me remember that I needed my friends. I've been thinking pretty much of only them for a while now. Instead, I took it to remember that there is an oak out there in Louisiana doing what I could not. And maybe that's the difference between natural things like trees and people. Some trees and things in nature are able to live in seeming isolation, but people, not so much. In order for me to flourish and feel the best version of myself, it was important. I felt some need of real connection. I don't know, Walter. I lived most of my life in pretty much isolation, devoid of human contact. I am more like the live oak. I was very sparse in the number of connections that I had. Well, let's think about this, Em. I would argue that you were not by yourself at all. Without connections, you still had family. You had some old family friends you'd see. Just like the tree with the deep root system, you still had connections, although they might not be quite as easy to see. I suppose you have a point there. I did have some connections around. They were just not as evident. I guess that I was more focused on having a few extremely well-developed relationships than lots of surface-level ones. Good point. Relationships, regardless of if they are deep and lasting or a little more surface-level, are important. I think that especially at this time, it's important to remember and find ways to maintain our sense of connection with other people. With that in mind, here's some questions for you to consider while you think about and respond to this poem. How are you staying connected during this pandemic? Have you been surprised at how easy it is to fall out of connection with people when you're not going to school or work? Do you see yourself more like the oak tree or the speaker in this poem? Do you do better with minimal connections or many? Why or why not? What connections to other people are most important to you at this point in your life? Do you think that will ever change? Well, that does it for us for this week. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time on